Okay, moving on. This is part 2. Okay, there we go. This is the floor paint project. So it's asking us, what is the price of the floor paint needed to paint a specific floor plan? So if we look at the floor plan, you need to paint a floor with a special floor paint. The middle of the floor has a special wooded circular inlay. It does not need any paint. So the circle does not need any paint, this little part. And then only the floor surrounding the shape. So this part, you know, that only needs paint. So now the important thing about coding is that you need to know the logic behind it. So they've given us how much 1 square meter takes of floor paint, how much what tins the paint comes in, and how much they cost. And they're essentially asking us how much do they cost. So well, let's look. This is a floor plan, and we essentially have to paint everything around here. That's it. So what are some things we will need? Well, if we look in the next page, we clearly see it. So let's start coming up with our different variables. Obviously, we'll need our name. So first name, last name, the cost of the 5/2 liter tins, then length of the room, breadth, and the radius of the circle. And then some other, so now these are some, so all of these variables, well, they're all going to be string. They're all going to be string. Now, the issue here is that we kind of don't want strings. The only thing we don't mind having a string for is the first name and last name. But for all of these, right, we're going to need something else, because when we have to calculate the area of the circle, which is pi r squared, we're going to be using math. And well, you can't use math on string. It doesn't work, right? So in order to use math, you have to use either integer or double. Now the issue is with integers are only whole numbers, and this uses decimals, especially with the length and the radius and the breadth. This uses decimals, so we're going to have to use a double. Now, let's say we get a double, right? We're going to convert all of these to doubles, right? All the ones underlined in blue. But remember, we can't convert a variable into something else. So if a variable has been declared as a string, it can't change. So especially when you try to replace the data, it can't change. You can't put an integer in a string. You can't put a double in a string. So we're going to create separate variables. We're going to create separate variables for all these different things, and they're all going to be labeled differently. So if we look down here, these are some of the string variables. And then if we look here, these are some of the double variables. You'll notice that they're the exact same thing. It's just that we need to have your double counterpart because we need to use it in math. We need to use it when we're working out the, the area over here and the area of the rectangle and multiplying it with the price, that kind of stuff. So we can see here, they show us how to do it. How do we convert it? That's simple. So that's our first couple variables. So I'm just gonna pull up my floor paint. There we go. So let's go into our, so floor paint UI is kind of useless right now. We only use that at the very end. So floor paint manager. So a nice thing we can do with strings is we can actually put them all in one line. So string first name, comma, last name. There we go. We've initialized two strings, two variables. So if you notice here, we've actually gotten them all. Length, breadth, radius, and then we will also need the prices of them. So that's also there. So all the variables we had labeled earlier, they're all here now. But then remember, we're going to need the double of all of them. So what I've done here, if you've looked carefully, I've actually added st to each of these names so that I know that all these specific variables are strings. Because remember, you can't keep two strings at the same name. Otherwise, the program will get confused as to which one is which, and then there'll be an error. So it's important to separate them. So what I've done, for all the string variables, I've actually added st to the end of them. And then for all the double variables, I've left them as normal. Now remember, so I've created all of them. Now, there are a couple of extra variables that I've created, but remember, you can create variables as you go, right? There's no compulsion that you need to do it all at the very beginning. So these variables I'll get into later. They'll come up later in the program. You'll see them. But for now, let's go on to our constructor method. Now, we talked about the constructor method in the last video. We talked about how, first off, the constructor method runs automatically. It does not need anything. It just runs automatically. You do not need to call it in the UI class, no. It runs automatically, which is very nice about it. So, let's look. So remember, the constructor method adds data to all these variables. So if we look in the constructor method, in the first name, then the last name, and then the price of the 5-liter can, price of the 2-liter can, length, breadth, radius. We're just going to do JOption pane, show input dialog, and we're going to do all of these, right? So if we run this, for example, we're just going to, look, it's adding all of them, right? So that's kind of cool. It's just showing us all the inputs that we need to know, and it's allocating all these inputs to each variable, which is what we need to know. Because we need this data for later to store it and convert it. Now, let's move on. Now remember, JOption pane only allows us, when we make an input as a user, we only make an input as a string. We can't really make an integer input, right? Which is why we have all these strings in the first place instead of just going directly to double. Because JOption pane only allows it only allows string input, not integer input. But remember, if we want to work out with math the area of the circle or stuff like that, we're going to need the double, not the integer, the double. So we're going to have to convert all of these strings into double. So you can see here 5 price, 2 price, length, breadth, radius. We've all done it, and we've all allocated it to all these variables. Double dot parse double. So it's essentially telling the program, okay, look, in this new variable, I want to convert this specific variable into a double. I want to so you're going to say double dot parse double, and then in brackets show the variable that you want to convert. So I want to convert the string length, so I'm going to make it into a double and then put it in the new length variable. Now all these variables have been declared as doubles, so it's fine. And it will pass through just fine. So we move on. So that's our constructor method. We've declared all our variables. We've put in all the data in it. That's fine. Now we have to look at our public void. Sorry, our next method. So we have to come up with a couple methods, right? It's kind of a necessity. Otherwise, you're going to go into when you make a program, you always need a plan. You need to know what you're doing. And this is our plan. So what are our methods going to be? So chances are we're probably going to make our first method. So we have to work out the area of the circle, the area of the rectangle, right? So that we know, okay, this is how much area we're working with. Then we're going to have a separate method for minusing these two areas and getting us the total area that needs to be painted. And then once we have that, we're probably going to see how much paint is required. And then what else was there? And then we're gonna so how are we going to work this out? We're probably gonna work it out by seeing so how much paint is needed per square meter. Then we're probably gonna see how many 5-liter cans are needed. Then we're gonna get the remainder, right? And this, even though I call it the remainder, it's actually going to be to work out the 2-liter tins. And then for the final method, actually the final two method, it will probably be to determine the cost and then to print it out. So we can see it's actually been done here. So they say 7 methods, and we've gone 8 because we're deciding to add another method just to print it out, but otherwise it's the same. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Boom. So that's that done. We have all our methods. This is usually why they give scrap paper to plan a program. So that's pretty good. So let's go over it. So in our first method, we're going to calculate the area of the circle. Now remember, now this is where we start to declare more variables as we move on. So we're going to need separate variables to declare for this area of the circle. Because remember, we have to use the area of the circle later when we're calculating how much area is required to paint. So we're going to have to create a separate variable for it. So if we look in line 18, double circle area, rectArea, and normal area. So all of these variables are used to store the data for the size of the areas. So if we look in the circleArea method, we see circleArea equals math.pi times math.power radius to the 2. So let's look here. Let's look at the circleArea formula. So we can see it's pi r squared. So we can clearly see we've done math.pi, so that's pi, times, so the little asterisk, the little star is for times math.pow, so it's to the power. So first we're going to get the thing that has to be to the thing that has to be squared, and then we're going to get it, and then we're going to times it by the power of. So we have to see the radius. So we're going to get r squared. So math.pow, open brackets, so we're going to get the radius, and then we're going to do it to the power of 2, right? So this is the base, and this is the power. This is the exponent. Then, now this is a thing most programmers do. They add this line, to debug. So system.out.println circleArea. The reason they do this is because it will print it to the output, and then you'll be able to see, okay, so if in case anything goes wrong, you'll be able to see where it went wrong. So, right, so that's actually really helpful. So that's that. Then public void rectangle area, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna rectArea equals length times breadth. That's the area formula. Then we're gonna do system.out.println. So that's the printing it out just to make sure it goes correct. Because in case it doesn't, you'll be able to see, okay, in the host, okay, this is where the answer went wrong. This is where I need to fix it. Cool. If you don't have these, you don't know which calculation was done wrong. Then if we look into the next method, areaNeeded, we'll see that area is equal to rectArea minus circleArea. So that just means we're going to minus the circle area by the rectangular area, showing us the area that is actually required to paint. So it's the area that's around the circle. Then we're going to print it out just to make sure we just to make sure. Then the next method, liters required, we're going to times it by 0.35. So if we look in the document over here, we can see 1 square meter requires 350 milliliters of floor paint. So we've gotten how many square meters we need. So we're going to times it by 0.35. The reason we haven't times it by 350 is because we want to times it by liters. So 350 milliliters in liters is 0.35. And the reason we do that is because we're going to have to times it by 5-liter tins and 2-liter tins, and we wouldn't want to confuse it with that. So we're just going to times it by 0.35 so that we keep everything in liters and not milliliters over there. So obviously area times 0.35, that's how many liters we're going to need. Then we're going to work out how many 5-liter tins do we require. So all we have to do, we have to divide it by 5. We have to divide the liters amount that we require by 5. And then we're going to round it up. Round it. We're just going to round the number so that we get a whole number. So if it's like 5.5 divided by 5, it's going to be 1.1 something something, whatever. So all you have to do there is you have to round it, and it'll go down to 1 5-liter can. Then you can print it out just to make sure. Now we're going to need the remainder. We're going to need to see how much of the floor is left. So what we're going to do, now this is called the modulus, right? Usually when you divide something, the dividend by the divisor, you're going to get the normal answer. So 25 divided by 7 is 3 point blah blah blah, remainder 4, right? But let's say you want that remainder. You want that remainder to see how much is left. All you have to do is 25% 7, and it will give you the remainder instead of the normal answer over here. So it's instead of returning the normal answer, it'll return the remainder. So here we're going to get the remainder. So if it was 25 divided by 7, we're just going to get 4. Then, so this is how, so we're going to see it, and we're going to do it by 5, because that's how much is for the 5-liter cans. Because remember, the 2-liter cans are only needed for the 2-liter cans are only needed as a remainder. Then we're just going to see if this amount is bigger than 0. So let's say we have like 1 liter left. We're just going to take the 2-liter cans to 1, right? So that we have 1 2-liter can to paint. And then we can print it out just to make sure it works. So if the floor left is bigger than 0, then we increase the 2-liter cans required to 1. Now, if we go to the next method, it's cost. It's working out the whole cost. So cost is equal to F tins times 574. This is essentially the prices that they show us. 5-liter tin is 574 Rand, 2-liter tin is 256 Rand. So they show us here the cost is equal to 5-liter tins times 574 plus 2-liter tins times 256. then you print it out just to make sure it's going right. And then in the next one, the final one, you just print it out, and it should be all good. So we can actually see it right here. So if we go into FloorPaint UI, remember we don't actually have to write FloorPaint nc.FloorPaint Manager here because because we don't have to write the constructor method here because the constructor method runs by itself. It's automatic. So that's pretty helpful. So we've initialized the instance of the FloorPaint Manager class. Then we're going to do all the methods individually, chronologically. And once we run it, let's try it. What was it again? I kind of forgot. It was 574, I think. 574, 256. 574, 256, 5.25, 4.35, 1.5. Cool. And it shows us all the necessary stuff. That's all good. And so if we just see, and I believe that, and okay, finally, if we look and print out, so this is the eighth, I'm losing my words. Eighth method, there we go. You can see we've actually used a new type of JOption plane. We've actually, instead of using an input, we've used showMessageDialog. So let's just go back to it. Oh wait, I think I've screwed something up. I'm just going to enter in random numbers. So, oh, that's horrible. 5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 23. Okay, so we're going to ignore that price. I think something's gone wrong, but we're just going to ignore it. The memo tells me I'm correct, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. If we look here, we're not actually getting an input here. It's just showing us a message, just showing us a dialog. It doesn't actually get any user input. That's why we don't actually have to put it under a variable, because there's no useful information coming out of it. So yeah, that's new, showMessageDialog. This is useful for like reporting it all the way at the very end. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Part 3 is coming soon, and they'll go over string methods, blah blah blah, whatever.